All right, welcome to all our Facebook Live viewers. We have in the office today 21st Senate District candidate Star Moffatt. She's been nice enough to join us for about 15 minutes. She's going to talk a little bit about her platform, take some of our questions, and as always, if you have any questions for Star, feel free to type them in on Facebook, and we can get those asked as well. Again, Star's running for the 21st Senate District, which encompasses both the Antelope Valley and the Victor Valley. She's seeking to fill the seat that will be vacated at the end of the year by current incumbent Sharon Runner. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Star Moffatt. And thanks, Star, for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So first things first, you're from Lancaster, correct?
Well, actually, I reside in Palmdale.
I reside in Palmdale.
Yes, our firm is in Lancaster.
You're a co-owner of a law firm in Lancaster.
Yes.
Some residents or some voters in the Victor Valley may not be familiar with you, so can you just kind of talk a little bit about your background, first of all?
Well, first of all, my background consists of, I'm a proud veteran. I've served in the military for 6 years. I'm actually third generation family member to have served. My father served in the military, my grandfather served in the military, and I too served in the military for 6 years.
Okay.
My brother chose not to join the military. During the time in the military, I was a material control accountant specialist, and from that I got a little bored with the numbers and decided to do something different, so then I became a truck driver.
Oh, wow.
And so that's part of my background. My father being in the military, we moved around a lot, so we were nomadic.
Sure.
And so as time proceeded, different places that we've lived, the longest place that we lived was in Panorama City, and we traveled in other different states.
Okay.
And graduating from high school and then going to college, I later obtained 2 college degrees. I have 2 AA degrees from LA Mission College.
Okay.
So for any of the alumni out there, my alumni, and then proceeded to law school as well, and became pregnant with quintuplets while in law school. I also am married to my husband. We've been married 28 years. And we have our only surviving child from the quintuplets. He's 9 years old.
Okay.
And our law firm consists of the areas that we protect and defend taxpayers. We also specialize in Social Security benefits, individuals that are disabled and
Sure.
seeking their disability benefits. We have done some limited veterans cases, and what we do best is to protect and defend Americans from the government.
Sure. Now, this isn't your first foray into politics, so can you kind of just talk me through what spurred you to want to get involved in the political arena, and in particular this particular election cycle? What's motivating you? What's galvanized you to seek the seat?
Well, what had happened in 2012, I was actually approached to run for state senate, and during that time, an individual, part of the Democratic Party, had approached me to run. He was very interested in the different things that I was doing in the community. I've been in the trenches and helping the homeless, feeding the homeless, providing low-income housing for the past 30 years plus. And back in 2012, the individual, one of the party heads, had stated they thought I would be a great candidate.
Sure.
And if I would consider running. So I told the individual, I said, I need to think about it, I need to pray about it, I need to talk over with my family because I'd never been in politics before. And so I thought about it, prayed about it 3 days, and we had family meetings, and we looked at it as an opportunity to serve once again, serve the state, serve the country, and gave my response. I said, hey, let's give it a try, and their interest was that they did not want Sharon Runner to go unopposed at that time.
Okay.
And proudly I can say my team and I, we did a phenomenal job the first time out. We got 43%, 114,000 votes. And fast forwarding to 2016, we're going to do it again, and this time we will take the seat.
And let's talk about, at that time you were running on the Democratic ticket. You've since switched over to the Republican Party. So can you talk a little bit about that shift?
The reason for the shift, or?
Yeah, the reason for the shift.
Okay.
And also, I guess, a good follow-up to that would be, does that change anything ideologically now that you're identifying as a Republican?
You know, at the time, and let me tell you a little bit about my political history. My political history consists of 22 years Republican, 10 years Democrat, and yes, on March 4th, I switched back to being a Republican. Mm-hmm. Even during the time of being a Democrat, I still had, I guess I'm a hybrid, both Republican ideals and Democratic ideals, and maybe a little bit of liberal ideas. So, you know, I consider myself an American first before politics. And when I was born in this world, I was an American first before any politics. What had happened, what prompted me to change back to the Republican Party, you know, I joined a party, not a gang. And what happened back in January 30th at the Democratic nomination caucus, that was a caucus that was rigged. And my one of the Democratic opponents rigged the election. And how did that happen? That individual was able to get access to the delegate ballots, but 2 months ahead of time. He began courting the delegates, had the delegates pre-signed, pre-date, email to the conveners. And I learned about that maybe a week before. And it was already told to me that I was going to lose the nomination because of what was happening, and I lost. But in 2012, I was the party's nominee, and
Sure.
I decided, I said, you know what, I am not part of a gang. And what had happened was totally, I disagreed with. I even had written the Democratic heads as well, complained. They came out with a decision letter because I filed a complaint.
Sure.
I was not going to take that sitting down. I filed a complaint, and believe it or not, they gave a decision document that wasn't even signed or dated by anyone.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even authentic.
Right.
And so I decided, I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to the Republican Party. And the other thing that was happening too, my position on the Second Amendment. Whenever I would speak at different Democratic functions, I literally felt like being attacked.
Okay.
You cannot, for me, someone who's been shooting a weapon since age 8, my father taught me how to shoot, and then serving my country, serving our country. I was a sharpshooter in the military. You cannot expect someone who, it's in their blood, it's in my blood. I'm trained.
Sure.
You cannot expect me to even mentally lay down my weapon because I've been so conditioned. That's what happens with any veterans. And so I received a lot of flack, and because I would not change my position to gun control.
Okay.
So between the issue of the rigging of the nomination election
And the response by the Democratic
and
Party,
the response by the
who
Democratic
essentially
Party,
found no wrongdoing.
they essentially found no wrongdoing, but essentially their decision document was not even authenticated. It wasn't even on Democratic letterhead. So
Okay.
what does that tell you? Anytime there's a decision that if there's any authenticity, it's going to be on letterhead. It's going to also be signed and dated by individuals. So it was a farce.
Sure.
And between that, I decided to go back to being a Republican. So I felt like, you know, I jumped out of the frying pan and now back into a little bit of the frying pan.
Yeah. Let's talk about, you know, what I think you'd probably consider to be a fair assessment of two of your key central elements to your platform. One being taxation and the other being business regulation. So can you kind of touch upon a little bit of each one and then give some ideas of how you approach or how you plan to approach these to make, you know, change for the better?
Yes. As I stated to you when I was in the military, my MOS, one of my MOS was material control accountant specialist. I hated numbers. And then eventually when I got with my husband, we opened up the practice of the tax firm. And within the tax firm, we represent a lot of small businesses and individuals. So my eyes have seen a lot, witnessed a lot. And one of the things that I have witnessed is where you have excessive taxation. Excessive taxation to businesses, excessive taxation to individuals, and you have, with the excessive taxation, especially to the small businesses, is crippling a lot of the businesses. You have the business leakage. You've had a lot of corporations that have left California to other states. You have retirees that are leaving California because of the excessive taxation.
Sure.
And the excessive taxation, you ask yourself, are you just working just to pay taxes? I like other individuals, you would like to have some money to keep for yourself instead of the excessive taxation. I remember doing some research, and if I remember right, I think it was about 58% of our salary goes to taxes. Mm-hmm. That's absurd. That is absurd. One of the things that when you have, like my opponent and the incumbent, they talk about, we're taxpayer advocates. Those individuals would have repealed some of the laws that have been put in place as far as excessive taxation. Being a tax advocate, they would be looking out for the interest of individuals. I can give you an example. You have bonds that are put through. Bonds that are put throughout all the municipalities. And I'm specifically speaking of Senate District 21, where these bonds are put through. There's two types of bonds they can put through. There's a lot of types of bonds. But one bond that impacts all of the constituents are bonds that are put through without voter approval. And many of those bonds are called certificates of participation. And they don't require voter approval. They have bypassed Prop 13, they bypassed Prop 62, and they bypassed Prop 218 due to a Ninth Circuit court case. So when you have these bonds that are put through, we're talking multiple millions of dollars. That impacts both the commercial business property owners and also the residential property owners. That is excessive taxation. That's also hidden taxation without representation. When I get into office, one of the things, hopefully I'm blessed to be put in office, one of the things that I want to see are Senate committees that actually will oversee the different municipalities, making sure that certificates of participation no longer. It's like fiat money. This can no longer happen. This is excessive taxation, hidden taxation. Another tax that is happening. If the incumbent and also my major opponent really work for protecting the individuals and the corporations, you would not see FUTA taxes. There are payroll taxes, 940 taxes that are put through every year, and it's a hidden taxation. And that FUTA tax cuts into the profit line of the businesses. When you cut into the profit line of the businesses, it impacts the businesses being able to hire additional employees. And that hidden taxation, can I explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure.
FUTA?
Yeah,
Okay.
Please go ahead.
That FUTA, hidden taxation, what it is when the state of California can no longer pay its unemployment claims. What it does, it borrows money from the federal government. The federal government says, okay, state of California, you have to pay that money back. You borrowed it, right? You would think that the state of California would borrow it. State of California is not borrowing it. Well, I'm not paying it back. What they're doing is a hidden tax on the 940 return. Every company, whether it's a small, medium, or large, we're paying back a loan for the state. Why should that be happening? Hidden taxation. Why can't California be transparent in its taxation? That's an excessive taxation. One of the things, again, should I be blessed to be elected, I'm going to hone in on that particular FUTA tax to put through a law legislation. Hopefully it'll get approved. If not, then there's other alternatives of how to put a bill through.
Sure.
Through the people, put it through as a ballot measure. So I will get it one way or another. But it's this excessive taxation and the regulations, excessive regulations, that are causing many businesses to leave California. I'll give you another example when we want to talk about the regulations.
Sure.
There are regulations that happen in California that deal with, environmental, EPA. Some of the absurd EPA, even applicable to the truckers. You have truck drivers where their trucks there's a law where their trucks have to
emission
be
standards.
retrofit. But then you have other trucks that are coming in from other countries, Mexico, where those trucks, they're not required to be retrofitted to the same standards of California truckers. Why are we having lopsided laws applicable to different countries or different, why is there a lopsided law to domestic truckers? That's absurd.
Sure. And 2 years ago, too, it may have been less than that, you had come out with a plan in terms of abolishing or wanting to abolish the state income tax. Is that
Absolutely.
Is that something you're still going to push for?
If you go onto my website, I've tried to allow people to get into my mind, how I'm thinking, and you'll see different proposed legislation that I would like to introduce. So yes, you're right, eliminate state income tax. Eliminate state income tax. There's other states that have no state income tax, and they're doing just fine. And we can take that tax. How about we transfer that tax to some of the corporations, like the oil companies that aren't paying extraction taxes? Let them absorb that. So that we need to find an incentive of how to keep California citizens here, how to keep California corporations here. I mean, we've lost companies like Toyota, Campbell Soup, major corporations that have left. But to answer your question, yes, that's another piece of legislation I would like to put through to propose eliminating state income tax. So you've been doing a little homework on me, huh?
Well, we've talked before. Let's pivot to transportation. Let's just talk transportation real quick. In particular, there's this project, the High Desert Corridor, which would essentially create a connection, among other things, between the Antelope and Victor Valleys, which is, the core pieces to the 21st Senate District. So, are you in favor of that particular project? Do you have any plans in terms of boosting infrastructure? Kind of what's just your general stance on those types of projects?
With the corridor project, of course, it's a great project to come into the community. I would like to know a little bit more about some of the nuts and bolts with the corridor. For instance, how many homes are going to be knocked out for eminent domain? How many individuals are going to lose their homes because of the corridor? I think that's everyone. It shouldn't be a surprise where, homeowners have like a 90-day or 180-day notice. If it should already be into the plans, then let's start educating the potential homeowners that they may be impacted. The other thing I would like to know exactly with what's happening with the corridor project, how many jobs are projected out of that? Okay, and the jobs that are projected out of that, are we going to be able? Are you going to have a program where individuals live here, work here, or are you going to contract out of state? Because what a lot of times happens with these major projects is that they then will hire a lot of people out of state, and then individuals that live here, they're still commuting. And I know there's a lot of people that would like to stop commuting.
Sure.
So I would like to maybe be part of Live Here, Work Here project, Live Here, Work Here program, infuse it into the plan. But if it's something that's not going to assure individuals that can live here, work here, and you're going to contract out, then I might be against the project, because one of the things that we can do is take the time to train individuals. A lot of times they say the reason why we had to go out of state was because we don't have people who were qualified. Then help train them to become qualified.
Sure. Let's talk
Do you have
about...
any water?
Yeah, it's Steve's office. I only have one more question for you, and then I'll
Yes.
let you conclude with your statements directly to the voters. But I want to talk about the dynamic of the district and kind of that natural split where you have Antelope Valley and the Victor Valley within the district. All the candidates, including yourself, are from the Antelope Valley. So there's no Victor Valley-based candidates running. To the Victor Valley voters in particular, how can they be sure that you'd be able to balance the interest of the Victor Valley with obviously the Antelope Valley, where you and all the other candidates reside?
One of the things is to make sure that I have a district office here. I think it's really important to have. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness.
No problem.
I think it's really important to have a district office. And let's just be real. As a state senator, you're expected to serve, I believe it's 995,000 individuals you're to represent.
Sure.
Can't be all places, all times. So one of the things that I would like to do so that individuals can have access to me, I would like to work Monday through Saturday. So
Okay.
I'm going to work Monday through Saturday. I want to be able to have live chat. I want to set up live chat with individuals. They can contact me anytime.
Okay.
And by adding on that extra day, of course, that's going to save money for the state. I'm willing to do that. I work 6 days a week now anyway. And what I truly believe is that identifying the issues between both communities. There are a lot of different issues that have to be identified. I have identified some of the issues. Taking the time to meet with the constituents and having an open door policy. I'm going to have an open door policy. I want to have a live chat line. So, and having where both communities can work together. This is the high desert, the Antelope Valley. We're still one and the same. But one of the things that I see happens a lot is, like for instance, let's talk about the Antelope Valley where I live.
Sure.
You have oftentimes where property tax dollars are centralized into the LA County. I'll give you an example. Back in 2012 when I was running, I had identified a particular town, Sun Village. Sun Village is a community where their property tax dollars are not being put back into that community. I want to be able to identify even towns that are being neglected with development. And there's pockets throughout both Antelope Valley and the high desert area.
Okay.
And we just learn how to work together and, again, identifying issues. We need to talk real life issues affecting real life people. And what you're getting right now, what most constituents are getting from other candidates is nothing more than rhetoric.
Sure.
They're making false promises. Both my incumbent and both my major opponent bought and paid for politicians. These are bought and paid for politicians. I'm not a bought and paid for politician. My campaign is self-funded. We are not accepting monies from any corporate America, not from corporate America, special interest. Even one of my, the major opponent, one of the opponents, he's a lobbyist. He's a registered lobbyist. He's not going to be looking out for the Americans, the California Americans' interests. He's going to be looking out for the companies he's still a lobbyist for. And what you have gotten actually from the incumbent and the other opponent, who's now transferring from the Assembly to, once transferred to, from Assembly to Senate, you've gotten a higher taxation is what we have received because they have not put through different bills to stop the excessive taxation. They have not focused on stopping the business leakage. And
Sure.
my website for individuals is www.starmoffatforsenate.com.
Okay.
And I hope and pray that I'll be blessed to be everyone's next state senator. And it's time for some fresh blood. Don't you agree? It's time to stop re-electing career politicians. I'm not a career politician. This is my second run. I'm proud of what we did in 2012. And I have to remember, I didn't do that on my own. I did that because of the phenomenal team I had, the voters, it was an indicator. They said, we're tired, we want change. And hopefully they still feel the same way in 2016.
Okay, well, thanks, Star. If you don't mind, let's switch places.
Yes.
Again, appreciate you being here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Star Moffatt. She's a 21st Senate District candidate, one of two Republicans going against in a race with two other Democrats. Again, that's seeking Sharon Runner's seat, as Sharon has already announced that she will not seek re-election after her term is over this year. So for anybody on Facebook Live who's interested, we have another candidate coming in probably within the next 15-20 minutes. It's actually one of STAR's competitors in the race, Jonathan Irvin, who's a Democrat, will be joining us here pretty soon. So make sure to watch that. Thanks.